Hey guys, so today we are going to talk about Polymer and how it compares up against Angular, Vue and React and a few of the other frameworks. So let's get into it. Now, why do I want to talk about Polymer? Well, I want to talk to you not so much about Polymer itself, but rather what it represents and something that I think is going to happen in the near future. So, let's define Polymer first and foremost. Polymer is a web framework that the idea basically is that it's a polyfill for custom elements or web components or whatever you want to call it. The specification for allowing you to add custom tags into the native browser. Now, the idea of custom elements has been around for quite a while, but as you can imagine, the specification is horrible. Well, horrible is a strong word, but Polymer tries to allow you to have a nicer experience building these types of components. So why am I so excited about this? Well, I'm very excited about this because from where I stand today, with my very narrow understanding, of course, of how web works and where things are moving, I think that Polymer or something very much like it is going to start mattering more and more. It's not going to happen today, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but I think it's going to happen very soon. Why am I saying this? Well, let's have a little bit of a talk about what it is that is so different and special about Polymer as opposed to something, let's say, like React. Now you can apply this to basically any of the other frameworks. So, first and foremost, I will make a statement. The statement or the argument that I'm going to make is that the web is changing a lot. With the adoption of service workers in pretty much all the major browsers and this idea of progressive web applications offline first, and then you have things such as WebAssembly, for example, we are very close to having, and CSS Grid, of course, let's not forget CSS Grid. That plays in to a large extent into the web platform. In fact, thanks to CSS Grid, you have a layout system for the browser that is basically as powerful, if not more powerful, than the native layout systems. Grid is actually the closest thing to having the same type of layout strategy as you would have in a design tool for the web, and that this is truly powerful. I don't think you understand how powerful Grid actually is, but it's one of the key things I think that's going to change the web forever. And the second thing that being, of course, service workers, which allows you to have optional network, which means that you can actually create a web page or a web application that works offline. That means that you now have the same capabilities. You don't have the performance of a native application, but you do have the ability to have a web application that behaves as a native application. WebAssembly. Next thing there is to see if that's going to go somewhere. I think it is. I think what's going to happen is that thanks to WebAssembly, you're going to be able to leverage a completely new level of harder computations, heavier computations, or rather that's the idea anyway. I'm not so sure where that is going to leave us. I mean, the obvious things for WebAssembly is graphics, of course. That's what everybody is promoting, but I don't think it's going to stop there. I think that's where it's going to start, and then I'm pretty sure that some things are going to be discovered that makes WebAssembly even more powerful than it is. And then finally, web components. Where does this fit into all of this? Well, with all of these technologies that we've talked about so far, there's a red thread. And that red thread is that it's all native. It's all standards. And what I think is going to happen is that we are going to see a trend unlike anything we've seen before. I think that the world is going to get fed up with these frameworks and these third-party solutions such as Angular and React and so forth. I think that we are going to get tired because a lot of the things that are great, there's a lot of things that are great about these frameworks, but they are not the native. But the problem is that there are a lot of things that are very good and very nice about the native platform as well. Things that you don't really, you can't really have in these frameworks. And apart from them having limitations that you don't have on the web platform, they are inconsistent, which means that you can't standardize on them. And then you have, of course, things such as you don't have, basically, you have more stuff. You have to have even more stuff. It's not the native thing, therefore you have to ship more code. And performance is always a discussion, especially in the web platform. That's why I think that's why I'm mentioning service workers and WebAssembly and all this stuff. It is gearing up. We are gearing up. We are preparing to move into a new era of application development on the web. And I don't think that there is a place for these heavier frameworks in that world. But there is for Polymer. Well, not necessarily Polymer, but web components. Because at the end of the day, what Angular, Vue, and React, and what all these frameworks are bringing to the table is this idea of component-based application development. That's the thing that we have wanted from the get-go. That's the thing that we need. We need to be able to create a component that we can plug into an interface and have it behave in a certain manner. That's what Polymer is doing with it, and that's where the major difference is. Why Polymer? Why not Angular or React or one of those really big frameworks? Because Polymer is working on the native platform. It is catering to the web component standard itself. The standard, that's the key thing here. It's part of the standard. Well, Polymer is not part of the standard, but it's catering to that. It's tying itself very closely to that, and I think that is why it's going to be the next generation of framework, if you will. It's not going to happen today. React, the brand name of React is way too strong, I would say. I don't see anyone, not for a few years at least, pushing React off the throne of the web frameworks. I don't think that's going to happen. It's the same thing with Angular and so forth. The hype is still going fairly strong, but I think it's going to die down. And I think it's going to die down when we start seeing success stories with service workers. Why do I think that's so important? Well, I believe that this is so important because one of the two main, in my opinion, problems that an SPA has solved, or these React and Angular and so forth, what they solve for you, which is very tricky to do in JavaScript or in the web at all, is to give that native feel to the user, that sensation that, hey, this feels like a native device. With a service worker, you can actually create an offline solution, which you can absolutely do that in one of these frameworks. But you can also solve routing. You can, even though you have a page refresh, you can actually solve the routing issue as well. You can go to a new page, you can cache things, you can store them. There's tons of stuff that you can do with a service worker that you cannot do with just an SPA. And what's going to happen most likely is that the SPA people are going to prove that they are still relevant by saying that, hey, but if we leverage service workers, we can also do this stuff. And people are going to buy into that too, and you're going to see articles where people justify using React and so forth together with a service worker, because that's how it works, right? When your power position is being threatened, what do? You tie yourself. You either kill off the thing that is threatening you, or you prove that you are still relevant. That's what's most likely going to happen. But I think that even when they do that, they are going to go the same route as, say, something like Grunt or Gulp or so forth. The benefits, or rather the benefits of not using them is going to outweigh the benefits of using them, and they are going to be very slowly shuffled out into not out. They're still going to be around, I think, but I don't think that they're going to have any type of like the same type of power. And what I think that's finally going to happen is that people are going to realize that thanks to just using web components, and as I said, not necessarily Polymer, but they're going to realize that they want less and less stuff, and they just want to get closer and closer to the web standard in order to build all their interfaces. Because let's remember, once you solve routing, there's only one thing left to solve, in theory, which is, in my opinion, state management in JavaScript. State management in JavaScript is notoriously tricky, but I think that we have a very good solution for that, which is Redux, or Flux, if you will. It's an elegant, simple solution that, and the concept has been around for a very, very long time, which also ties into this idea, as I said, coming back to your roots. And that's what I think is going to happen. That's why I think that Polymer is going to be the next generation of framework. It's not happening today, it's not happening tomorrow, but I think it's going to happen fairly soon. So to me, the two most interesting concepts, apart from, of course, service workers, that I'm going to look into and try to really get a good feel for is Polymer and Rust. And I think that Rust, my gut is telling me that Rust will be very important for WebAssembly. I think so. But let's see how it goes. Because I honestly believe that we're coming back. We're going full circle. We're coming back to the platform. And I think that we are going to see a new era of application development.